They are one of the more mysterious races of Middle-earth. It's possible that even within Middle-earth, they were merely the stuff of myth. Yet, while they are mentioned little in the works Tolkien published, we find they once played a much larger role in his vision for Arda. Today on Nerd of the Rings, we cover the giants of Middle-earth. Like dwarves and trolls and many other mythological creatures, we find giants within the pages of Middle-earth's history. However, unlike others, the existence of giants is up for debate, as they are only briefly mentioned and often come in earlier drafts of Tolkien's writings. The most concrete instance of giants appearing comes in the pages of The Hobbit, where we find Bilbo and the dwarves attempting to cross the Misty Mountains after departing Rivendell. There they were sheltering under a hanging rock for the night, and he lay beneath a blanket and shook from head to toe. When he peeped out in the lightning flashes, he saw that across the valley the stone giants were out, and were hurling rocks at one another for a game, and catching them, and tossing them down into the darkness, where they smashed among the trees far below, and splintered into little bits with a bang. Then came a wind and a rain, and the wind whipped the rain and the hail about in every direction, so that an overhanging rock was no protection at all. Soon they were getting drenched, and their ponies were standing with their heads down, and their tails between their legs, and some of them were whinnying with fright. They could hear the giants guffawing and shouting all over the mountainsides. As we know, The Hobbit is quite different in tone to Tolkien's other works. It is far more a whimsical children's tale than what some might see as the more serious later works. This has led many to believe that the stone giants of this story are simply a figment of Bilbo's imagination, as he experiences something far more terrible than his Hobbit mind could comprehend. Immediately before the description of the stone giants, we find the storm itself being described through Bilbo's eyes. All was well, until one day they met a thunderstorm. More than a thunderstorm, a thunder battle. You know how terrific a really big thunderstorm can be down in the land and in a river valley, especially at times when two great thunderstorms meet and clash. More terrible still are thunder and lightning in the mountains at night, when storms come up from east and west and make war. The lightning splinters on the peaks, and rocks shiver, and great crashes split the air and go rolling and tumbling into every cave and hollow, and the darkness is filled with overwhelming noise and sudden light. Bilbo had never seen or imagined anything of the kind. Some believe that Bilbo, unable to grasp what he was seeing, and in his fright, imagined or embellished the existence of stone giants. It would certainly not be the first time Bilbo would be known to embellish his story, after all. Yet when the company later comes to Beorn's house, Gandalf speaks to Beorn of what transpired in the mountains.
There was a terrible storm. The stone giants were out hurling rocks, and at the head of the pass we took refuge in a cave, the Hobbit and I and several of our companions.
Gandalf does not appear to be saying this metaphorically or mockingly, but as if Beorn would have a complete understanding of the creatures he's talking about. Gandalf is described as being far from happy about the giants himself, and it is said that Beorn's ancestors lived in the mountains before the giants came. These are creatures that Beorn would certainly know of. Now, we have obviously been specifically referring thus far to stone giants, as they are called. While the Hobbit films depicted these as giants made of stone themselves, there's no indication this is what Tolkien meant by the term, but rather more likely is they were simply giants who threw stones, this action giving them their name. Outside of these moments in The Hobbit, we find that giants were certainly talked about in various places of Middle-earth, even if only in legend. During the Riddles in the Dark between Gollum and Bilbo, we are told during one riddle, Bilbo attempts to recall all the names of all the giants and ogres he had ever heard about in tales. But it is not only the stories of Gandalf and Shire hobbits that feature giants. We find a specific example that actually comes in The Lord of the Rings, among the Mannish realm of Gondor. In this instance, the pre-Númenórean people living in Gondor had a legend to explain some unique geography of their land. Their legend tells that giants once lived in the lands north of the Bay of Belfalas, and that they created the White Mountains themselves in order to keep men out of their lands. In this effort, a giant named Tarlang tripped, breaking his neck, and rather than dispose of his body, the giants left him where he fell, and thus Tarlang became part of the land. His neck, or rather the break in it, becomes Tarlang's neck. His head is called Dol Tarlang, translated as Tarlang's head, and the two stones he was carrying become Kulbin and Kulveleg, translated as little load and big load respectively. While this can quite easily be written off as a tall tale of the pre-Numenorian men, it is interesting to note that Minas Tirith itself is described as so strong and old that it seemed to have been not builded, but carven by giants out of the bones of the earth. Again, this is simply a grand description to convey the wondrous guarded city of Minas Tirith. Yet I think it is notable that this description is given to the greatest city of Gondor, where the original inhabitants had such a great tale as Tarlang. Diving deeper into things like the Book of Lost Tales, the history of Middle-earth, and the history of the Hobbit, we find that giants were meant to be one of the races serving Morgoth. Here he is called Melko. Tolkien even gives us two variations of giants, Ulbandi, or wood giants, and Taulir, or mountainous giants. He even at one point provided two named giant characters, Nan and Gilim. Both are mentioned in the Lay of Lithien, where Luthien invokes their names to cast a spell to escape her captivity by her father. She names the longest things in Middle-earth in order to grow out her hair, using it as rope for her escape. Sang of Glend the sword of Nan, of Gilim the giant of Eruman, and last and longest she named then the endless hair of Uinen, the lady of the sea that lies through all the waters under skies. Then did she lave her head and sing a theme of sleep and slumbering, profound and fathomless and dark, as Luthien's shadowy hair was dark. Each thread was more slender and more fine than threads of twilight that entwine, in filmy web and fading grass, and closing flowers as day doth pass. Now long and longer grew her hair, and fell to her feet and wandered there, like pools of shadow on the ground. Then Luthien in a slumber drowned, was laid upon her bed and slept, till morning through the windows crept, thinly and faint, and then she woke, and the room was filled as with a smoke, and with an evening mist and deep, she lay thereunder drowsed in sleep. Behold her hair from windows blue, in morning airs and darkly grew, waving about the pillars gray of Hirilon at break of day. Then groping she found her little shears, and cut the hair about her ears, and close she cropped it to her head, enchanted tresses thread by thread. Thereafter grew they slow once more, yet darker than their wont before. And now was her labor but begun, long was she spinning, long she spun. And though with elvish skill she wrought, long was her weaving, if men sought to call her crying from below. Nothing I need, she answered, go. I would keep my bed and only sleep. Now I desire, who waking weep. Thus Luthien uses this woven rope to escape, making her way to aid her beloved Beren, after invoking, among others, the names of two giants. But what were the giants of Middle-earth? Some fans and scholars believe they were simply a variation of troll. Douglas Anderson puts forth this theory in the annotated Hobbit. With this comes the common perception that such beings were lumbering and stupid beasts. However, we find in The Return of Shadow that, while writing The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien envisioned giants possibly being a race of overly large men, far more clever and powerful than one might assume. Giants were spoken of, a big folk only far bigger and stronger than men, the ordinary big folk, and no stupider, indeed often full of cunning and wizardry. However, in yet another surprising quote, we hear Gandalf speaking of the front porch into Goblin Town.
I must see if I can't find a more or less decent giant to block it up again, or soon there will be no getting over the mountains at all.
In the end, we can't be wholly certain what giants were or if they existed. Gandalf's comments about the front porch and to Beorn certainly seem as if they do. As always, it's fascinating to see the various versions of his tales Tolkien went through, be they troll or giant men, or good or evil, or as Robert Foster says in his Complete Guide to Middle-earth, a joking reference. Giants make for another great topic to ponder and speculate over in the wide world of Middle-earth. As always, I want to say a huge thank you to all my Patreon and YouTube supporters who make this channel possible. Tom DeBombadil 19, Lissamy the Cinda, Rabbi Rob Thomas, Charles Leisure, CCDC Red Team, Joe Tepper, The Mighty Mim, Andrew Carlisle, Swirled Traveler, Matthew Jeffrey, Viking Lord, Leo Vittori, Sky Carcass, Slide Belts, Dane Ragnarsson, Berto Berg, Graham Derricott, The Dark-Haired One, Wyland, Micah Wu, and Debbie. If you enjoyed the artwork in this video, check out the artists in the description to purchase prints of their great work for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Nerd of the Rings.